In March of 2002, you had 3 different releases for Yu-Gi-Oh! Products. You had the Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon, the first booster set. You had Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Duel Stories, which was the first Game Boy game. And also you had the 2 first starter decks, Starter Deck Kaiba and Starter Deck Yugi. This is where Yu-Gi-Oh! Started, and many players like myself got started around that time. And I've never actually opened a Starter Deck Kaiba, not only on the channel, obviously these things are kind of hard to come by. I've also never opened this, just period. The first starter deck that I ever got to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! Was Starter Deck Pegasus, so I've never actually held one of these in my hands. And this is not a first edition one, unfortunately. Those ones are like crazy expensive. This one is still pretty pricey, but this is the Unlimited Edition of Starter Deck Kaiba, the 2002 starter deck. This is what started everything, and it's a pretty big deal. And in today's video, sort of as one of the many things that I've been doing to celebrate 100,000 subscribers, I finally want to open this. I've had it for about a month now, and it's sort of just been sitting on my shelf. I think now is the time to do it, because this is a very special product and I can't open them all the time. I feel like it's a really good time to go over this and show some of the early roots of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. And I really want to take my time with this because there's a lot of stuff in these old starter decks, the very first starter decks, that you don't really see anymore. First off, I believe it is 50 cards. Yeah, we have 47 common cards, 3 foil cards. So I mean, technically at this point, there isn't a deck size limit. I don't believe they added that until later, but you do have a minimum. The minimum is still 40, but people really didn't know what to do back then. It's kind of interesting to think about. In ancient Egypt, there existed a force so powerful it had to be locked away for millennia. Now one boy has released the power. It's time to duel. Objective: in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, 2 players face off in an all-out battle, engaging a match consisting of 3 duels. Wow, they even put, I'm really surprised that they put match, like the match definition, on the back instead of just duels individually. It will take skill, practice, strategy, and luck to emerge victorious from the match, as there are many factors players can manipulate to vanish their foe. Wow, pretty heavy stuff here. The main battles are waged between incredible monsters, split into an amazing 20 types, which nowadays, what, there's 24, 25, 26 or something like that. They add one with every new like summoning mechanic pretty much, each with their own unique skills and fighting styles. In addition, players can use magic, set traps, change the battlefield itself, and even fuse 2 monsters together to form a monster of immense power. Pretty crazy stuff. Starter deck content. 2 decks to collect, Yugi deck and Kaiba deck. We have the Kaiba one, obviously. Each 1-player deck contains 47 common cards, 3 foil cards, 1 rulebook, and 1 game mat. We got some funny stuff on the bottom as well, because it's listing Upper Deck as the contact for Yu-Gi-Oh! They don't make it anymore. We also have the old Konami logo. I should mention, I'm sure some people will say it in the comments, if you have one of these, Unlimited or First Edition, keep it sealed. It is worth way more sealed than any of the individual cards. Even the Blue Eyes here in mint condition of this Unlimited is only worth about $10-15, where the thing sealed is about over $100. So you definitely, if you have this, keep it sealed, but that's no fun. So we're gonna open up a piece of Yu-Gi-Oh! History on the channel, and maybe sometimes, or someday I should say, if you guys like this video, I can do an opening of the Pegasus one, because that was my first starter deck, so it'd be kind of fun to go through. So we have the OG, the original game mat. They still are just these crappy mats that they include in starter decks. Even in 2019, they never improved upon this. Rubber mats are cool and they're fun, but a little more pricey for Konami to put in here. You can see we have most of the same stuff, except, you know, we're going to have a fusion deck zone, not an extra deck zone, a fusion deck zone. Other than that, though, pretty much the same feels. Oh, I guess one thing that's different, it says magic and trap cards. Obviously, eventually they changed it to spell cards because, yeah, Magic the Gathering didn't like one of the card types in Yu-Gi-Oh! The competitor being saying magic on it. Official rulebook version 2.0. We are currently on 10.0, and yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. It's just so much nostalgia going through here. I'm not going to read the entire rulebook. That'd be, only a madman would do that on camera, but you got some cool stuff here. They don't have nearly as many pictures, I will say that. They must have gotten some complaints about that. How long is this? I guess that's one question. The current rulebook, okay, there's a blank page, a couple blank pages. The current rulebook is 55 pages, and the beginner's guide is 35 or 30 pages, I think. So this whole rulebook, all the rules back then, because you don't have as many extra deck types, you don't have pendulums, you don't have all that stuff, it's going to be a lot shorter. Although a lot of this stuff, I think they have found ways to simplify it. So it's kind of interesting to see what goes on here. And this one does not have a glossary, but you got some stuff. What does that say? Keep the monster card to magic trap ratio to 1-to-1. Yeah, does anyone else remember building decks back then and they were always 20 monsters, 10 spells, 10 traps? I remember doing that a lot. But there's the official rule book. And then we get to the actual starter deck. So like I said, I didn't play competitively back then. I was in like second or third grade back in the day. So I'm not going to say that I know which of these cards were super competitive. I always talk about how just because I remember cards being played in the schoolyard doesn't mean that they were actually competitively viable cards. And in many cases, that is not the fact at all. I get people talking about cards like Solidarity is a good example of a card that a lot of people remember using when they were in like middle school or high school. However, that doesn't mean that it's competitive. Wow, you got 50 cards there, pretty thick. We got these minty fresh near mint cards because they are right out of the box. Pretty exciting stuff here. We have the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Not my favorite artwork, but one that many people believe is iconic. I mean, it's an iconic artwork, of course it is, but it's not my favorite. I like the Legend of Blue Eyes artwork is personally what I think is cooler. So we have Blue Eyes White Dragon. Man, you would have been the coolest kid in school if you would have had one of these. This legendary dragon is a powerful engine of destruction, virtually invincible. Very few have faced this awesome creature and lived to tell the tale. Yes, it's a pretty cool original Yu-Gi-Oh card, still iconic to this day. One of the most iconic cards. There's always this debate, and I don't think there's like a right answer. I'm sure there is officially like, or I guess technically a right answer, but there's always this debate about is Blue Eyes the most iconic card, or is Dark Magician the most iconic card, or is Exodia the most iconic card? I think some people might think it's Pot of Greed, but I don't think that's true at all. If you talk to people, it really just comes down to when you talk to people that know almost nothing about Yu-Gi-Oh, which card do they know? Personally, I think more people know Blue Eyes than the other iconic cards, but that's just my opinion. And we have Lord of D. Wow. How cool is that? This card, I used to never understand this card's artwork. I didn't know these were like its hands, which now holding the card, it makes a lot of sense. But I used to think the card was like that. Like I used to think its hands were his cape holder thing. But yeah, those are his hands. Kind of, they have lots of weird perspectives in these old Yu-Gi-Oh card artworks. All dragon type monsters cannot be targeted by magic cards, trap cards, or other effects that specifically designate a target while this card is face up on the field. Man, old text is fantastic. They just did not know how to write cards at all. It's hilarious. And we have a Flute of Summoning Dragon, super rare, really cool looking. I like this card a lot. I almost wanted to play this card when we got the King of D in the recent Legendary Collection Kaiba. I really wanted to play this card because it was kind of like a cool one of. I mean, look at this text. Playing this card when you have a Lord of D card face up on the field allows you to play up to 2 dragon type cards from your hand as a special summon. Like, all of that is just so funny. And I think it's cool at this point they have not figured out how to use quotation marks in the text. So instead of this card just putting Lord of D in quotation marks so you know that it's like the specific card, they actually just have it says Lord of D card. There's going to be, I think, a ton of normal monsters in this starter deck, so we'll take a look here. Keep in mind, at this point, we are still a couple years away from the first structure decks. You only had starter decks for a while. You only had starter decks and core sets. The first structure decks, I believe, were 2005 or 2006, somewhere around there. Maybe it was 2004, but I don't think so. I think they went a little bit longer without including any actual structure decks because, to be completely honest, there just weren't enough like synergizing cards to make a structure deck around. Anyway, though, Skull Red Bird. I definitely can't pronounce that at all, but that's one of the cards that got an updated artwork. Reverse Trap. All increases and decreases to attack and defense are reversed for the turn in which this card is activated. It's like reading Shakespeare, really. When you read these older card decks, it's like reading some sort of old play. Dark Titan of Terror, a fiend said to dwell in the world of dreams. It attacks enemies in their sleep. Pretty scary. Ogre of the Black Shadow. Man, what a great card. Monster Reborn, the one, the only Monster Reborn. What a cool card. And this card is currently limited in the TCG. It just came off the ban list, not too long ago, a couple ban lists ago. Pretty exciting card, though. One of the few cards from this era that is still seeing competitive play. Although, to be fair, if some of the crazy cards that were released in the first 3 sets, if those were unbanned, they probably would be seeing play. But this is one of the ones that is currently legal, and some people still play it. Not as good as it was back in the day, but still pretty cool card. We have the Wicked Worm Beast, a card that I never really understood as a kid, and when I went back and read this card as an adult, I still didn't understand it because it seems like it has no purpose. This card is returned to your hand at the end of your turn. This doesn't really make any sense. It's, I guess, to protect it from getting run over by battle because it doesn't really have a lot of attack points, but if you just played a bigger monster, you wouldn't actually have to worry about that, so I never really understood that. Ryu Kaishin Powered. Pretty cool card. We got 1,600 attack points. We're getting up there in the world. An Earth monster equipped with this card increases its attack by 400 points and decreases its defense by 200. Because we all know it'd be way too broken to have a card that just strictly increases the attack by 400. That'd be way too good. We have I just noticed these cards are kind of miscut here. You can see we have a very small border on the right side and a larger border on the left side. Not the Konami. What's up with your your quality control? Doesn't make any sense. We have 2-pronged attacks. Select and destroy 2 of your monsters and 1 of your opponent's monsters. One of the biggest sort of bait cards that I feel that a lot of people back when I started playing this game, they were like, oh, that's broken. You can use 2 of your cards to get rid of your opponent's big monster. When in reality, you're actually losing a lot more than just 2 of your cards because you're losing this card as well. So you lose 3 cards just to deal with 1 of your opponent's monsters. Not a very good deal. Pale Beast, which I always thought was funny because he's not really that pale, right? Shouldn't he be like exactly just fully white if he was truly a pale beast? This guy's like this old Yu-Gi-Oh artwork. You just don't see cards like this anymore. Like, what the heck? Why does he have 2 heads? He's like a mini Slifer. The background's all like whimsical and stuff. I don't know. You just don't see artwork like that anymore. Have we even pulled a effect monster? I don't think so. Oh, we pulled the Wicked Worm Beast, which would actually be better if it wasn't an effect monster. So not a lot of those running around. I mean, back then you didn't really have that much. You had like Man-Eater Bug and a couple other cards, mostly just based on stats. Remove Trap. Wow, so good. Are there even face-up traps back then? Not really, right? There's like, this is before Call the Haunted. Unknown Warrior of Fiend. He's unknown because he only has 1,000 attack. We got this guy. Didn't Joey use this card? Is this a Kaiba card? I thought this was a Joey card. I don't know. Rude Kaiser. Oh man, that is a cool old card. I remember this card a lot. This was pretty good in the Game Boy games. They used to have one of those. All these funny level 5 monsters with 1,800 attack points because they didn't really quite figure out how much attack a monster should have. And then, oh boy, Ultimate Offering. Holy crap, this card's actually really good. It's currently banned. At the cost of 500 life points per monster, a player is allowed to an extra normal summon or set. What's funny about this card is that it is missing some text because I believe this card can only be used during your turn or your opponent's battle phase. It might even be more restricted. It's probably like your main phase or your opponent's battle phase. That's just not on this version. I don't know if this card was really good back then because you weren't getting a lot of value from your summons, so it really didn't accomplish anything. But this card was pretty crazy right up until it got banned. There was some pretty nutty combos you can do once they started adding cards that can search other cards when they're summoned. We have Fissure, pretty good removal spell actually. Back in the day, a lot of people used to play this card. It's funny to think about that a card like this would be good enough to be like on the Forbidden Limited list, but it was good for a long time. Destroy one opponent's face-up monster with the lowest attack. The main use of this card was when your opponent only had 1 monster, just instantly killed it. We have Komori Dragon, pretty crazy looking. This guy always see like this perspective is so weird to me. It reminds me a lot of the Lord of D, where like certain aspects of the things are like accentuated, like they're huge. Like Lord of D's hands are gigantic, and then this guy's head is really big. So this guy probably has a body, I would imagine. I used to think he was just a big head, but I think it's like I think he's like a dragon like coming at you sort of. But it's so hard to tell with that perspective. We have Trap Master. Wow, an effect monster. Destroys 1 trap card on the field. If that target is face down, flip it face up. If the card is a trap card, it is destroyed. If not, it's returned to the face down position. The flip card is not activated. Wow, that is a lot of text. Pretty cool card. We got an effect monster. Broken. Ancient Telescope. Wow, broken. See the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. Return the cards to the deck in the same order. Wow, what a great card. Swordstalker, I just do want to say real quick, it is pretty funny to see the juxtaposition of cards like Monster Born and Ultimate Offering next to cards like Remove Trap and Ancient Telescope. You just have clearly, whenever anyone makes a card game, like you got to have some revival in there. You got to have some sort of extra mechanics to spice things up, like Ultimate Offering. But when you go back and look at it years later, we really figure out like which cards were broken and which cards weren't that good. We have Swordstalker. Wow. I think this is a time where, like, I don't know, Konami seemed to have rules for what makes the difference between a 5 and a 6-star monster, but it's just so funny because usually with the 6-star monsters, you don't have a situation where they have, like, 1,800 attack points and they take a tribute, where the 5-star monsters, you have a lot of those. 2,000 isn't the best, don't get me wrong, it's not a Summoned Skull, which I don't believe is in this deck, by the way, but it is just interesting to think about, like, why would you ever play Rude Kaiser when you could just play Swordstalker? It's broken. Reinforcements, pretty cool card. 500 attack points, little battle trap. I think Rush Recklessly was also in one of these starter decks. Battle Ox, now this is actually a pretty good card. 1700 attack, that is a lot more than most of the cards we've seen. I know some people that play the LOB format, which is these starter decks, and then Legend of the Blue Eyes, and I believe Battle Ox is played. There are some other 1800 attack monsters. There's like, I think La Jin is in this set. Maybe it's not. Maybe that was in the actual core set, but that card's really good as well. We have Mystic Horseman, Rogue Dial, 1600 attack points, pretty respectable actually, comparatively. Dark Hole, man, what a card. What's funny is that this card actually did start to come back. Like, it was at semi-limited, and a lot of people were still using it at semi-limited, but once Konami limited it again, a lot of people just didn't use it anymore. So now we have Dark Hole and Regeki, both limited, but no one really plays them. Would you play them if they were at 2 copies per deck or 3 copies per deck? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, if you're not going to play them at 1 copy because you don't think they're good enough, are you going to put 3 copies in your deck? Probably not, but maybe. It's hard to say. But yeah, Dark Hole, really good for a really long time, and even good up until just like a year or 2 ago, honestly. Mystic Clown, Destroyer Golem. Oh man, look at that guy. He has some thick muscles, despite the fact that he probably can't work out because he's made of rocks. The Inexperienced Spy, select and see 1 card in your opponent's hand. See, stuff like this, stuff like Ancient Telescope, I can see from like a early designer standpoint how they're like, oh, that seems pretty good and stuff. But in retrospect, yeah, they're obviously not that strong. Castle Walls, sort of the opposite of Reinforcements because he gets defense instead of attack. Oh, another effect monster, broken. Mysterious Puppeteer. As long as this card remains face up on the field, the life points of this card's controller increase by 500 for each additional monster summoned, excluding special summon, but including your opponent's monsters. Wow, that is it's pretty darn good, I guess. You get some life points. Pretty insane. Terra the Terrible. I will say, and this is terrible, no pun intended, there was a girl in my class named Terra, and I remember some of the kids bullying her. Not me, I'm not a bully. Some of the kids bullying her with this card's name. So shout out to all the Terras that were in 2nd and 3rd grade back in 2002, 2003 for unfortunately having to deal with some people that were probably laughing at her because she had the same name as that card. Oh man, this guy got fast feet. Fast on its feet. This dinosaur rips enemies to shreds with its sharp claws. Just Desserts. Hey, this is a card that is still pretty up there. I mean, people were playing this Mystic Mindbird, and it was played in Chamberin for a long time. Maybe not the greatest card in this starter deck, but relative to a lot of these other cards, pretty darn good. And then, oh yeah, we got one of the best normal summons in this entire starter deck, if not this entire format of this first month that this game was out. La Jin, the Mystical Genie of the Lamp. 1800 attack on a 4-star monster. What is Konami thinking putting that card in the same starter deck as Rude Kaiser? Why would you... It's weird, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't have health, so if the defense points were health stats, like in other card games, yeah, it's like, okay, this guy has 1600 defense, this guy only has 1000 defense, and I'm sure that's kind of along the same lines of what they were thinking. Like, overall, Rude Kaiser has more stats than La Jin, but the only stat that matters is attack points, so... I don't know, it's whatever. I think a lot of these early cards were designed around the defense points, like, acting as a health point when they really aren't. Sojin, I guess there's some warriors in here. Dehuman. Wow. So they just didn't put dragon in the title. I wonder why. I wonder if they're like worried about if they put dragon in the title, it would be called dragon. The people would confuse if it's a dragon type or not. Because I think this means dragon human, right? It kind of looks like a dragon thing. Gifted with the powers of dragons. Yeah. This warrior wields a sword created from a dragon's fang. Isn't that kind of like rude? You're a dragon, but you're using a dragon part to have a sword? Kind of messed up. Okazi, wow, crazy card. 800 points of direct damage. Still one of, like, as far as individual normal spell cards go with no restrictions, this is still some of the highest damage you can do off of one card. Not saying it's good, but just pointing that out. Because you have like Tremendous Fire, which does 1000, but you take 500, so it's a little different. We have Judge Man. Once again, why is this card in a deck where you also have Rude Kaiser? Well, more importantly, why do you have Rude Kaiser in a deck where you also have Judge Man? I mean, it's really not comparable, right? Because Rude Kaiser is way shorter on attack and defense points. I mean, I guess this has 100 less defense, but they're like, oh, this one's a 6-star, so it can have a little bit more stats. But it's like, they both take 1 tribute, so who really wants to play level 5 monsters? Anyway, that's my long-winded way of saying level 5 monsters were not very good for a long time. Dark Assailant. Hane, what a classic flip effect monster. Not quite as good as Man-Eater Bug, at least not back in this day, but definitely when extra deck monsters started coming around, bouncing effects became a lot more relevant, although not this one necessarily. Trap Hole, really good trap card back in the day. We got many forms of Trap Hole. Bottomless Trap Hole, Void Trap Hole, Traptrix Trap Hole. Like, what is there, like 10 Trap Hole cards, 15 Trap Hole cards? Whole bunch of them, and all started with Trap Hole. D-Spell, just like remove trap. Once again, I feel like they were overestimating how many continuous spells and traps were going to be played, because at least this one can hit like face down, so you can like hit an MST or something, but still. Master and Expert. This guy, we have the powered version and the regular version. Dark Energy, a fiend type monster equipped with this card, increases its attack and defense by 300 points. And Hitatsu Mi Giant. I don't have the full story for this card. I'm sure someone will want me to tell it someday. I just don't have enough information. There is a point in the OCG version of this game where this is the best card in the game. I know that because I've read the story a few times in the past, but I don't know enough about it to make an entire video. But just so you know, because we got a lot of cards at once, where in the OCG they got them at a slower rate than we did in smaller sets. So I remember that this was like the big card, and then I believe that Urabi actually was like one of the big cards. I think I'm probably mispronouncing it. I think this was like the next big one, 1500 or whatever, and pretty big deal. But I don't know the full story, but I do know this was one of the best cards, if not the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in the day, or in OCG, not in TCG. Anyway, though, that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this opening. I've well, ever since I hit 100K, I've been trying to like up the ante for which videos I'm posting, and I really want to cut back on pack openings and stuff like that as much as humanly possible. However, I think that this product in particular is very unique, and you guys would actually want to look at it, so I wanted to open this one still because it's a pretty cool product. Going forward, I'm really going to try to not do nearly as many pack openings. I wasn't doing a lot anyway, like 4 or 5 a month, but still I want to cut back almost entirely, except for the really unique stuff like this that you guys don't see every day. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you later. Goodbye.